Okay, so welcome to Grounded, the home of mindfulness and meditation. Today I have a old friend around for a little bit of a chat, a little bit of a podcast. We're going to put a little bit of our experiences onto video and share it with you guys. So his name's Dave.
Very happy and incredibly grateful to be here. What's it been, 7 years?
7 years.
7
yeah.
years, coming up 8 years since the last time
we
we saw each other. And you know, it's when we spoke on the phone, you said that even my vocabulary had changed, and it's very much a case of asking the question to ourselves. That ultimate question is, what is the truth? And we all know it because when we're born, everybody's born a perfect clean slate, and then everything that happens to us, we think in life, we become imprinted or programmed with the thinking of why is this happening to me? But when you ask the question, instead of asking the question from a victim mindset of why is this happening to me, I now ask the question, what am I learning from this? What's this teaching me?
Yeah, and that's the ultimate flip in life, isn't it? When you stop, when you stop blaming reality and you start questioning reality, I think that's when
that's the
shift
key.
Really begins to happen.
That's the key.
Yeah. So basically, me and Dave, we lived next door to each other, and as Dave was saying, this is going back about 8 years. My name's David, his name's
I'm
Dave
as well.
Now, at the time that we lived next door to each other, we were both very different people from the people that we are now.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing to be back in touch with Dave and to see how his journey's developed and how he's developed through self-awareness and how I've developed, and then sharing that story. Now, when we lived together, we both we both had similar backgrounds, so we was both sort of heavily carrying victimization sort of ideologies about ourselves. We both come from backgrounds of addiction. You know, I was a cannabis addict at the time. I'd been a long-term cannabis addict. You had,
mine was alcohol.
Yours was alcohol. And we both sort of see each other's lives while we was living next door to each other unfolding in that unhealthy way of being, that unhealthy way of living. And I just think it's mad now that 7 years later that I'm sitting here and I'm having this kind of intellectual conversation.
I'm truly blessed and I'm truly humbled, and I really cannot, you know, I'm so grateful to have this experience and to share what I've learned with you, but also to learn from you as well, from what you've learned. And, you know, and it creates what I believe almost a synergy-like type of energy that from what we've
that works well.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as I was saying, like, your learning and understanding of getting to where you have has led you to the same place where I'm at, but we've both taken different routes and different understandings to get to that same place.
But what I like so much is the thread of searching for the truth is so congruent between yourself and I.
Yes, like deeply enriched within our beings.
100%.
That
you when you start to strip away the layers, you start seeing parts of yourself that you didn't see before. I mean, as soon as you we get rid of, not necessarily get rid of our addictions, but we
understand the driving force behind the addiction.
100%.
Yeah, understanding what drives us into addiction
is basically pain and fear.
Of course it is, yeah.
And we are anaesthetising ourselves because we don't want to look at those cracks or those flaws. When in fact, if we do more of the internal work and take away the things that are anaesthetising ourselves, to begin with, those emotions and those feelings are going to be really raw and really painful because we've like I say, we've anaesthetised ourselves to feel nothing because we are afraid, and it's that fear that drives us to the addiction.
Fear drives us into avoidance and escapism.
That's right. 100%.
And as I was saying to you, it's like we almost live our life treading water, trying to stay on the surface of what is really going on within us.
Mechanism.
Yes.
It's just a survival mechanism, surviving. But we get caught or enslaved by that thinking and feeling and thinking. Because every time we think, we have a feeling, and that feeling, from what I've learned and from my personal experience and my personal journey, is understanding how our consciousness affects our physicalness as well. So my understanding is the physiology behind it as well, and the real sort of cellular level stuff. And I'm talking about the neurochemistry. So we'll have a thought which will create a feeling, then the feeling will create a neurochemical response. And then the neurochemical response, because we're feeling that physically within our physiology in our body, that will then perpetuate more thinking, more feeling. Now we're trapped in that cycle, in a loop of thinking, feeling, and over a period of time,
basically becoming addicted to that chemical response in the body.
100%.
Yeah. So we're not just overcoming psychology, we're also overcoming physicality. We're also overcoming the body's addiction to wanting to feel them very destructive chemicals that are being produced by a negative emotion.
And also to the point that we're so used to that thinking, that feeling, it's habitual. It becomes habit.
Yeah.
But all the time that it becomes habit, you're unconscious of it. You're not actually observing it. You're not aware of it because you're enslaved or you're entrapped by it. But as soon as you step outside and you observe that thinking, then that feeling, then that gives you a chance to respond as opposed to react in a completely different way. And as soon as we gain that awareness of observing the thinking, the feeling, and then how we're going to respond as opposed to reacting, that gives us, we're then taking back the power as opposed to the power being taken away from us.
And that is where meditation becomes important, because meditation, the more we meditate or the more we take time to observe what's going on within us, that is what begins the separation. That's what begins that discovery of self-awareness, to sit and to be with yourself and to see what is arising within you, which is why meditation has been a very important part of both of our journeys.
Big time. It's changed my life.
Yes.
Changed my life.
And only through self-awareness can we begin to see the destructiveness of our behaviour, of our patterns. Until we begin to question our own reality, we're very much stuck in, like you say, habitual thinking. Behaviour patterns that are already conditioned in ourselves, and they're so conditioned, we're so very much them patterns that we don't even challenge what we believe. We don't question what we think. We don't question what we feel. And that's when, as Dave was saying, we're dealing with reaction. Now, whenever we're reacting to a situation, we are reacting from our conditioning.
Correct.
Whereas when we are responding, when there is just a response to what the situation needs, response is coming from a place of clarity.
Yeah.
Where there is no reaction, where there is no past coming up, where there is no hurt coming up and being put onto the situation. Now, as I went through my layers, because an awakening is only really peeling back the layers that are imposed over your consciousness. But as I began to peel back and question myself, and as I really began to get to the real core of what I believed, I start to realise that my whole life was being generated around no self-worth. Like I felt like I had no value in life at all. Like I could not offer anybody any value at all.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I had to do everything for free because I didn't feel worthy of anybody giving me anything for it. And what that actually done was it actually created a life where I had nothing. Because I actually truly felt on a real deep level that I was so unworthy, I literally lived off scraps. And I mean I lived off scraps. I was in people's pockets. I was living on handouts, because on a deep core level I actually believed that I was completely worthless. So not only was I dealing with not feeling worth, they all stem from rejection. Like my deepest trauma is rejection.
It's an internal void.
Yeah, and until I actually began to awaken, I lived in rejection. I see rejection. I attracted rejection. Life reflected rejection. Life reflected.
Like attracts like.
Like attracts like. So what we need to understand, and like one of the biggest points whenever I'm talking or doing any teachings, is understanding that our external reality is a mirror of our consciousness. So when we say law of attraction, I say law of mirroring, because your reality is continuously mirroring what is going on within you. So if you,
it's as before the camera came on, me and Dave have been talking quite a while.
We should start recording like about an hour and a half ago.
It was brilliant. It was amazing, and again, I thank Dave for his praise, and I just feel so grateful to be here and share this content with Dave and with you guys as well. Because I know how much it's changed me, and it's changed my heart, and it's changed my life. But, excuse me, our internal environment, our internal conversation with ourselves will regulate and dictate and manifest into our external environment. So how we communicate with ourselves will then manifest how our external environment will communicate back to us.
Yeah.
So if we're not feeling worthy, if we're feeling shallow or shame or guilt, we're projecting, because any emotion is energy in motion, and that carries a vibration. Vibration carries frequency, and frequency carries information. So we're actually projecting that information out into the universe. But by projecting that out, as we think that, because it's been now proven by Dr. Joe Dispenza, but with over 7,000 brain scans with an EEG and an electroencephalogram, that the brain waves can actually be measured outside of the human head. So we're actually projecting information, but it's the feeling that draws it back to us. So we're projecting that information out. If we're feeling unworthy, so if you stub your toe and you start the day in a bad mood, then you'll attract more of that back to you, because of the feeling. It's a feeling universe.
Yes.
So we have to be conscious and aware of our thoughts, because our thoughts will then create our feelings, and our feelings create our emotions. And then our emotions will then dictate how we react, if we're unconscious of that thought or that feeling, or if we respond intelligently.
Yes. And then intelligently, we're not coming from a reactional pattern of behaviour. And you just touched on something that I just wanted to expand a little bit on, but I can't think of what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me in a minute. But and I think that is a massive step in your life, when you stop blaming your reality. Because the moment you stop blaming your reality is the moment where you begin the journey of you become responsible for your reality.
Everything's my fault.
The moment you become responsible for your reality, you become responsible for what is going on within.
100%.
And it just come to me again, but it's just passed right through. And that's what changed my life. That's what truly changed my life. And the more I actually questioned myself, and the more self-aware I become, the more I realised how every day I was inhabiting all of these ideas and beliefs that just sucked the life force right out of me. It drew in negative relationships, it drew in negative experiences, and to realise the difference.
Because of that void in yourself, you're looking for that externally, in your external environment.
Yes.
And this here is where sits the key. Is our internal environment. Once we look at our internal environment and we find out where the void is, all that void is we're lacking self-love. Now, whatever's happened to us in the past, we just have to accept it and surrender to the fact that regardless of whatever has happened, we are still worthy of love, not from anyone else, but for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the key. As soon as we love ourselves, then everything else falls into place.
Yeah, and loving yourself always starts with acceptance. So what actually happens is, when you awaken, now when I realised my rejection, what we tend to do is we want to push rejection away. We don't actually want to integrate that part of us. We want to put rejection on somebody else. We want to put rejection on our reality so we don't have to face it within ourselves. And actually, as we begin to awaken, now when somebody says, "Oh, Dave, you're quite a funny guy," I'm more than happy to accept the part that says, "Yeah, I'm a funny guy," you know. But rejection, no, fuck rejection. I don't want to accept that. But this is what I'm talking about. When we unite ourselves, when we become more whole, we bring rejection towards us. We integrate that part. We accept that part, and by accepting our dark side, by accepting our shadow side, by accepting our flaws. So when we say love yourself, we're not speaking about brushing over your shit, because trust me, everybody has that in their closet. What we're talking about is holding the parts of you that you won't accept. It's about holding your rejection. It's about if you look at rejection as a part of yourself and you try to disown that part of you, you're disowning a part of you that has a valuable experience. That you're saying, as a child, my inner child, as me as a child, I felt rejected. And so if I reject rejection, I'm only rejecting myself. What I actually do now with the part of rejection, I realise this is a childlike part of me, and I put my arms around it and I go, do you know what? You're not rejected. And I bring that part closer to me. And by doing that, with all of these different aspects of all these negative traits that I've got going on, instead of trying to push them away and reject them and bringing them closer, I'm unifying the positive and the negative.
With resistance comes more resistance. The more that we push away, the more it will push back.
Yes, well, the way I describe it is like a panic attack. If you're having a panic attack, and I guarantee everybody's had a panic attack, what do you do? The first thing you do when you have a panic attack, you start panic. No, resist. But then if you move into that panic attack, boom, it clears up. And that's the exact same with any emotional resistance you're dealing with. The moment an emotional resistance is resisting a part of yourself.
Yeah.
And the moment you resist a part of yourself, you're pushing it away, and that actually amplifies it even more. So when we're talking about awakening, we're talking about unifying all of these different parts of us. We're creating a third entity, which is the awakened consciousness, which is consciousness awakening. And consciousness awakening is the unity of the positive and the negative, where both...
It's the yin and the yang.
Yeah, both polarities are...
Light cannot exist without dark, and dark cannot exist without light. There has to be always a balance.
Yes. And so that is one of the ways of unifying yourself. But that has to come from a place of seeing. It has to come from a much greater perspective. It has to come from a much more realised, a much more self-aware state. And which again brings us back to mindfulness and meditation. Now, if you're not getting more awareness through mindfulness and meditation, the other way you're growing
right now.
The other way you're growing in self-awareness is your triggers, because it's your triggers that are the parts that need to be healed.
Yep. That's where your work needs to be done.
So if you're not into mindfulness and meditation, I'll give you the opportunity to say right now that tomorrow you'll wake up and you'll be triggered on a number of topics. And what we do with these triggers, these are the parts that need to be healed within us.
Yep.
And when a trigger arises, what do? We cancel out reality, because we don't we cancel the trigger out. Do you know what I mean? Rather than realising
it pushes us towards addiction, because because of fear.
Yes.
We don't want to deal with that.
Yes.
Because again, it's all been driven by pain.
Yes.
But as soon as we can, at some point, at some level in your life, you will have to face it. So why not face it now, instead of living your life on survival all the time, wondering what's around the corner, instead of just accepting what's going to happen. Whatever happens will happen. It's going to happen without your control, whether you like it or not. This is life, right? What you have got control of is two things, which is your thoughts and your actions. That's all you've got control of. Yeah. But those two things will dictate and regulate how you manifest your personal reality. What happens in your external environment is all down to your internal environment, in the conversation with yourself. So as soon as we sit with ourselves, like in meditation, we are allowing ourselves to observe our thoughts, observe our feelings, observe our emotions, and that gives us a greater level of awareness because our clarity is shifted, but not clouded by the conditioning and the programming. That our thoughts don't, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't define who we are. Not everything that you think is true.
Yeah.
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 So I meditate sometimes, even when I'm walking, believe it or not. And I'm controlling my breathing as well, because that then also helps me change my physiology in what I've learned about our physiology will regulate and dictate our psychology as well. So if we breathe, and our breathing is our main key factor. So how we breathe, if you're in a low energy vibration, you're going to be shallow, you're going to be hunched, and you're going to be closed off. So your physiology will give away your psychology. So if you open yourself up, then you'll open your diaphragm, you'll open your lungs, so you'll take bigger, deeper breaths.
You'll communicate a lot better.
You're communicating with your mind and your heart. So the mind and the heart becomes more coherent. And the more that the mind and the heart becomes more coherent, then that also has a greater effect on a neurological level and how your body creates the chemicals that regulate your physiology. And so with the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic, I think I'm trying to remember which way around it is. You've got your fight, flight and freeze, and then you've got your rest, digest and repair. Only one system can be active at a time. So if you're having a panic attack, you're in your fight, flight or freeze. So the only way that we can control that, we can trick ourselves, trick our physiology by breathing. And it's as simple as that. And
it's by having the awareness, isn't it? To see what's going on 100%. And to not allow the physiology to take over the situation.
So that your body doesn't become the master of the mind, because it's your mind is the master of your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's having the communication between the mind and the body, because emotions become, especially the ones like fear, hate, doubt, shame, guilt, grief, are all low vibrational energies, and they keep us trapped because of pain. Again, it all comes back to pain. And as soon as we face our pain, we get to a point of being able to sit with it, then eventually it, like a cloud, it will eventually begin to just dissipate.
Yes. Yeah.
And the more that we can self-regulate by being self-aware, the more we have, and we practice that. And this is a key as well. It's like you have to practice it. You have to practice meditation. It is going to be hard to start with, but even if you start with just 5 minutes.
Yes. Do you not think that's a great way? Like, you know, like initially when I started setting up for meditation, I'd be like, right, I'm going to meditate for like 5 minutes, and then like I set the intention to meditate, and this is straight away. This gives you a little bit of clarity of what's going on. I set the intention to meditate, and then I sit in meditation. All of a sudden, I have all these thoughts about trying to get out of meditation.
But that's the resistance.
Yes,
that's the resistance.
Yes, but then that's how you start to see it, because you're like, hold on, I'll set myself out 5 minutes, and like not even 30 seconds in, I'm trying to get out of it already. Do you know what I mean? And you know, you set the intention that I'm not going to think. When I go to meditate, I'm going to set the intention I'm not going to think. And all of a sudden, you're thinking, and hold up, this is not the intention that I set. And that creates self-awareness, because it gives you the awareness that I can't stop fucking thinking. Well, if the intention is to stop thinking, and then I can't stop thinking, am I in control of the thoughts that are coming up? Do you know what I mean?
See, what I've learned and what I've found is there's been quite a lot of confusion about the understanding of what meditation is.
Yeah.
And people think meditation is to clear your mind. That's
not.
No, it is to observe
what is
your thoughts, your feelings and your emotions as if it were clouds on a clear blue sky. Allow that cloud to pass through the clear blue sky. Allow it to pass through your mind. You are observing that cloud. You're observing that thought, that feeling, that emotion. It's not controlling you. You are not controlling it. You are not manipulating it. It is not manipulating you. You are simply allowing that thought, that feeling and that process to occur.
Yeah.
Without resistance.
Without resistance. And even if you get caught up in a thought trail, when you realise you're caught up thinking again, just let go.
Bring yourself
let
back.
Let go. And this is the key. This is what, when you really begin to awaken, the more you begin to let go of what is arising in your mind, and the more you begin to let go of thought after thought after thought, the more awareness awakens within you, the more conscious you become of consciousness 100%. Itself. So mindfulness, when we first begin mindfulness, we can be very caught up in the thoughts. But the more we practice mindfulness, the greater the ability to let a thought go, let a thought go, let a thought go. And then you become aware of what is allowing these thoughts to continuously pass, what is letting go, what is like Teflon here, what part of me is... And it's through that process that you begin to awaken. You begin to awaken to your consciousness, to what you truly are, that which is behind every thought, that which holds your personal sense of self together. It's your consciousness that holds that personal sense of self together. And the more that personal sense of self is let go of, what is holding it together begins to realise itself. And then we're talking about a whole different... Yes, and then that's when self-awareness begins to really arise, not from your personal sense of self, but self-awareness from your being, your divine aspect, the part that is not caught up in this physical reality. It's the observer nature in you, the primary function of your existence. It's the awareness in which the whole of your life plays out on. Thoughts, feelings are constantly arising, reality is constantly chopping and changing. Your thoughts and feelings are constantly changing, but that which is aware of all of the changing is the unchanging, and that's what we awaken to. That's the true intelligence of life behind the personal sense of self. And when that begins to awaken, we're talking about a flowering of consciousness. We're talking about the blooming of going beyond the personal sense of self, and that is the next step in evolution. If we look at human beings, evolution, the first step was human self-awareness. Like, I woke the fuck up, but I woke up and identified with this mind and body. So animals are not self-aware of themselves, but human beings had that first step of awakening out of and into form, realising I am a body, I am a mind, and then that creates a personal sense of self, which creates the idea that I'm separate from everybody else. But then there's the next step, which is going beyond that personal sense of self.
So that's duality as opposed to oneness.
That's what creates it. Yeah, because consciousness awakens in the body and it believes itself to be this mind, this body. But then the next step in evolution, which is where human beings are heading, is consciousness waking up from the idea of a mind and body and actually realising I am the unity, I am life, I am everything, and everything is coming from me. And when that really begins to happen in human beings, no longer is there a separation. There's the unifying field that unifies every single one of us behind these personal senses of self. And only when that happens can we really unite. In the Bible, they reference heaven on earth. A heaven on earth is when that state of consciousness is realised in all of us, and these personal sense of selves that we all hold on to, that we believe ourselves to be, dissolve, and then that unifying, that's a unifying field. That's true oneness. That's
quantum
true
physics,
love.
My friend.
Yes,
that is what you're talking about right there.
And then you're tapping in. Then you're tapping into the quantum field. Not only are you tapping into the quantum field, but you're living from the quantum field.
Yes, you're drawing from it.
Yes, you're living in the actual unknown. No longer you're trying to create, control. And
it's like matter trying to create matter.
Yes.
And it doesn't work that way. Within quantum physics, instead of matter controlling matter, you've now moved from particle to wave.
Yes. Yes. You've become the God essence, the Godhead itself.
God is in you, because God is everything. Everything is subatomic quantum particles.
Yes.
Everything in existence is subatomic quantum particles, and as soon as we realise and understand and accept that everything is interconnected, that's the key to understanding the difference between duality and oneness. People are conditioned and programmed to identify as you are you and I am I.
Yes.
Instead of actually understanding that we are actually...
behind them identities is the unifying field of consciousness itself.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry to jump on your point there.
No, it's cool. I love it. Thank you. Yeah.
But that is the next step in evolution. And when people say, what's the point of life? Now, if you look at consciousness itself, beyond the personal sense of self, consciousness, the state of being, it's a unified field. It's a field of oneness. And because it's unified and it's one, there is no separation in it. So what actually happens is, now that we have existence and creation, when I awaken to my essence, I am awakening to oneness from a separate point of view. So actually, the point of life is to awaken and to taste and realise oneness from the point of separation. Does that make sense?
100%.
Does that make sense? So,
totally get you, brother.
So as you know, as consciousness is one and unified, it cannot experience itself unless there is other. So creation is waking up in a single point as other and realizing consciousness itself and experiencing itself from the point of separation. Mm-hmm. So when they say what's the purpose of life, the purpose of life is to awaken, and then the purpose of awakening is to unify the field again. Yeah. And that's that. You know, so whenever anybody's awakening, they're servicing.
That's the only way that the human species, as Greg Braden so eloquently puts it, human by design, that is the only way that the human consciousness will evolve to the next level. Sorry, excuse me. It's already innately in part of us, but we are conditioned and covered with this, pardon my vulgarity, this layer of 6 foot layer of shit, and then we get to a point when we start to ask it, like we've been where we are now, we ask the question, what is the purpose of life, instead of anaesthetizing ourselves with, for myself, alcohol,
for me, cannabis,
you know,
and many years of steroid addiction that I went through.
It's crazy, you know, and you're so caught up and trapped.
Yes.
In that.
Can I just say something?
Please.
While you're on that point? Now I'm going to quickly touch upon attachment, and what attachment is. Attachment is trying to get a sense of yourself through something external to yourself.
Yeah. Again, and it's like
because we're so numb, because there's so much resistance in us. We're so hardened to life. We're not emotionally vulnerable. We can't connect with each other. We can't allow ourselves to be emotionally vulnerable. We become so hardened that we become attached to little things to give us just these little tastes of bliss.
Materialistic, and that again becomes duality.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're attaching yourself to something which is materialistic on your external environment, because there's something that's lacking in your internal environment that you haven't dealt with.
Yeah. Yeah. so I don't know, touching back on where I am with myself and how far my journey's gone, and then I'll let Dave sum it up. And I just want to tell you the difference of where I am now from where I used to be. When I first met Dave, I was in this identity, this personal identity that was very heavy, very depressive.
I think,
and
we were very much mirroring each other, really, in a big way.
Yes.
And it's incredible how much I'm blown away by how much work and how much you've grown.
Well, how much we've both grown.
It's big time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's incredibly humbling.
Yes.
And when I first got here, it's a rebirth. It is very much. It's a rebirth.
This is a rebirth.
Your life starts again.
Yes.
Because you've
it's
now pushed away all of that shit.
Yes.
You've got rid of it because you know none of it is true.
Yes.
It's all crap.
Yes.
So as soon as you peel away the crap and you get to the truth, then you begin to get to a level where you can start to accept and face the pain. And once you get to facing the pain, you start to gain more tools and experience. And the more you practice mindfulness and meditation and being aware of your thoughts, your feelings and your actions, then that in itself is a different set of habits that you're now practicing on a daily basis. And by changing your habitual life, that will then manifest in your personality, because every time you think you have a thought, you have a feeling. So nerve endings, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, I love this. Nerve endings that fire together, wire together. So we have a thought 10,000 times. Those nerve endings, those synaptics in your brain have now hardwired themselves. You physically change the shape of your brain by thinking alone. We are the only species on the planet that can change our state by thought alone. Our frontal lobe is 40% larger than any other species on this planet. Just by thought, we can change our physiology. Think how powerful that is. I invite you to think how powerful that is. Just by thinking, you can change your physiological state.
Yeah, I think...
And that works both ways, works both ways, positively and negatively.
Of course.
Now, if you get attached onto a negative thought, you're going to change your physiology, because then you're going to go into fight or flight. But if you change your thinking and you're conscious, and the more aware you are of yourself and your thinking and your feeling, now you're more in control of your physiology.
And your reality.
And your reality. That will manifest itself.
So I think the take-home point from both me and you, mine and your perspective, is that if you truly want to change your life, and you truly want to understand life, and you truly want to know yourself intimately, deeply, then you have to begin to realise yourself. What is going on with him?
So, I mean, let me pose a question to you. So, say for example, if we get into a relationship with someone else, and we want to know all about them, yeah? But we haven't even started to ask the question, hold on a second, what about me? Why don't I find a relationship with myself and understand how I work first before I'm taking myself into a relationship? Because we do. Everybody's
well,
done
I think
it at
mostly
some
it's because
level.
we're looking to heal ourselves through somebody else.
Again, and that's the external environment.
Yes.
We're looking for something externally
to ourselves,
which is missing from our internal environment.
Yeah.
So it's the communication with ourselves internally will then manifest and regulate what happens on our external environment.
Yeah. Yeah, so the more we are at one with ourselves internally, you don't even need to go out and find, because the more at one, the more whole you become, the more whole your external reality becomes. Mm-hmm. You don't need, we think we need to work hard. We don't need to work hard. We need to align, and everything will come to us. Everything will shift. I went from having nothing to having my own place, having my own car, completely self-sustained. I was a codependent. I lived with somebody my whole life. I needed somebody to look after me. Now I'm completely self-sustained. I don't need nothing from nobody, and that's just...
Because you're dipping into the quantum field, you're drawing that experience to you.
And then we're really talking about synchronicity and miracles, and we're talking about your life just unfolding and work like it is now.
I truly believe that this is where we are now, and there's a cause and there's a reason why we're sharing this content together.
Yeah.
And the fact that we spoke on the phone for nearly 3 hours the other day.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it was about an hour and a half, and then probably another hour and a half again. So 3 hours, And I've been watching Dave's content for a while. And I've been putting little bits and pieces on some social media feeds, and there's a reason behind everything that happens, and there's a reason why I'm sat here tonight and we're sharing this experience together. It's not happening to us; it's happening for us.
For us, yes, and happening for other people as well.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do, Dave, if you can I just get you to relay something that's changed, some tool or tip that's changed where you are, that maybe that could help somebody else, and then I'll give a little tool and tip, and then we'll be back at some other point to talk about some other topics on this nature, because there is so much to talk about.
I'm real, and I know that we're going to be working together in the future. I have no question of that. You touched on synchronicities. I get. And it's the more that we align ourselves with our true purpose and the truth of ourselves and who we are of ourselves, then the universe will start to answer you. It will start to communicate with you in certain ways. As you said, synchronicities, certain things will start to play out.
And your purpose will unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until then, you've got to learn all of the conditioning. Which it takes time, but if you stick with it, you'll get there. If you question yourself, you will get there, and you will change your life, and you will change your reality, and you will change what you know about yourself. But yeah, Dave,
The biggest lesson for me, without a shadow of a doubt, has always been being too hard on myself, being overly critical.
I like that. That's brilliant. That's a great tool to start off with.
Because we have this almost unrealistic perception of what we should be, or who we should be, or how we should act, or how we should respond, and it's not true. And as soon as we can just get to a point and say, hold on a second, stop being so hard on yourself, give yourself some credit for the work that you've done, then that is your first, for me, that was my first step onto the path. As soon as I stopped beating myself up and being unrealistic with my own perception of myself.
And being hard when you fell off the track.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Because with the alcohol, I would anaesthetise myself, and then the following day I'd be like,
I've done it again.
I've done it again.
Yeah.
But then you're trapped because you're feeling that way. You're going to repeat it because you want to anaesthetise that pain.
Yeah.
So as soon as we can stop anaesthetising the pain, face it, accept it, and just say, hold on, I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. It's because it doesn't serve you.
Yeah. I think that's,
and that is the first step for me. And I can only Ed Milet says you cannot you cannot express to me that which you have not experienced yourself. So I will always refer to my own personal experience. My own personal experience.
It's the only thing that carries anything.
Yeah. My own personal experience was just anaesthetising pain, and being so hard on myself on things that I felt were going wrong. And I had that victim mentality of, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Unknowingly and unwittingly, by thinking and feeling, I was perpetuating that cycle, but I was also sending that information out into the universe. But because I was feeling it, I was drawing it back to me. And I was enslaved by my own thinking, feeling and acting. So by changing the first thing, which is your thinking will change your feeling will change your acting. And now you have a different set of habits, because we're habitual creatures. And once we practice these habits, these new habits, it will be uncomfortable because it's unknown. It's outside of our comfort zone because we don't know what's there. But as soon as we step outside, then you will get synchronicities. The universe will start to communicate with you. And you will you'll think, correct, hold on a second. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you're actually tapping into, like you eloquently put, you're tapping into the quantum field. You're drawing the experience to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to look for it. It comes and finds you.
Yeah. So your tool is to...
Just the thought. There's only two things that we've got control of. It's our thoughts and our actions. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Okay. For me, it's pretty much on the same sort of topic as you. Self-acceptance. Accepting how you feel, and not trying to alter at any point at any time, ever trying to alter or change how you feel. That for me is probably one of the biggest tools that you can have. And what that does is it takes the resistance out of yourself. So for me, the biggest tool or the biggest piece of information that I can offer is to always accept how you feel.
Regardless of
whether it's positive or
negative.
Yes.
Because as we said earlier, light cannot exist without dark.
Yes. So it's about holding both, and you can only hold both when you get rid of the resistance. So always, if you feel down, stop trying to change feeling down, be down. If you feel broke, stop trying to change broke, be fucking broke. If you feel rejected, stop trying to change rejection, feel rejection. Hold all these parts together. And that takes the resistance, that brings acceptance, and acceptance is self-love. That's if I will tell you now what self-love is, beyond all of the ideas that we have, self-love is acceptance.
Yeah.
And acceptance will always bring you to understanding and to peace. Anyway, Dave, I think we're going to call it a day on that
Top
one.
man.
We will be doing
Thank you
some
so
more
much.
videos. We shall change the topics and what we're talking about, but we will do some future events. And as always, stay up to date with my content. Try to produce as much content as I can. I do have a number of retreats. I have one running Friday, and I have one every Friday of every month. I do private home meditations and general meditations, which I'll put some more details up. But anyway, Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you, brother.
It's been so good to catch up with you.
Awesome.
And I'm sure there'll be plenty more. Dave, you got anything you want to add?
Just be kind to yourself.
Self-acceptance.
Just be kind to yourself. You know, whatever you're dealing with at this moment in time in your life, it will pass, and things do change. You know, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and since putting the drink down and focusing on filling the cracks. I see the cracks of my life as areas of space to be filled with love. There's I think it's China or Japan, if they break a jar or a vase or something, they glue it back together with gold. So I see the cracks. So if you feel like you've been a broken vase, when you put yourself back together instead of like the analogy of gold, because it makes it more.
The analogy of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Perfectly so. Yeah. So just be kind to yourself, and anything that you're dealing with right now, it will pass, and things do get better. And it all starts with one thing. Everything in life starts with one thing, and that's a thought. Simple as that.
Okay,
Dave.
Well, to the next one.
So grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good. I enjoyed it. So
Thanks.
again, stay up to date with content. You'll be seeing more of me and Dave doing some work together.
Truly.
To the next one. Much love.
Thank you.